Okay, Dick, let's get into, I called it customer visits, but it's not. That's not the answer. The real one is...
This is slide one of a presentation by Don Brunner on when to see your customer. And we're talking face-to-face here. There's a lot of material with plenty of mental stimulation and bears some food for thought. This is slide two, reasons to see a customer face-to-face. These are listed in the order of importance. And the first reason would be when problems arise. The second reason would be just routine gathering and information sharing. And the third reason would be a routine sales call.
Okay, Dick, I stopped it right there because I want to have you explain as we go along a little bit more about these slides.
Well, the first thing that really came across this is, when does the owner have to go out and see his customers? Or when does he need to? What's a priority? What kind of criteria does he have? And what's his real job? I mean, normally he's got a salesman that goes out, but when does he have to do it? And probably the first reason is, if there's a problem arise, if a customer calls and he's ticked off and he's got, a complaint, that's certainly one that the business owner could probably settle the most. And, a customer would appreciate it the most. He wants to go visit them if he wants to either share information or get information about the competition, about the customer, about the service that he's providing, about the service that his competitors are requiring. And then the third one is maybe it's just a routine sales call. Hey, you're a great customer. I'd like to do more business with you. And I got this new stuff, and give me an order. So that's really the kind of thing, and that's the way that an owner monitors a business that doesn't show up within his procedures.
Okay, I'm going to break it here, and I'm going to let you have it go back to the audio for a second, and then we'll continue with this. Okay?
Now again, we're talking about the head of the company, you, the top dog.
Well, what happened here? I thought we had the audio. There, I don't know, Dick. I lost my audio. I guess you're going to have to wing it. It was working.
I thought we pretty much just did.
I thought we had it had like 3 minutes of audio for you there, and it was when I saved it, it was there. I don't know what happened to it. Okay, so let's talk about when problems arise, then, Dick.
Well, if the customer's calling you with a problem, that's an emotional thing for him, because to make someone pick up a phone and call and complain, that takes more than just something that's kind of gnawing at his skin. That's something that's an emotional thing, and the longer you let that thing fester, the worse off you are. So you want to at least call and acknowledge it right away, make an appointment to see him, and, if you're going to go see him, you better not go there with, well, I don't know the answer. That's not fact-finding at that thing. You better do the fact-finding on your end to see what's there and be prepared to offer a solution. So that's certainly the first time that the owner wants to call on a customer. And that really doesn't matter what size customer he is. If any customer has one, he needs to be seen. Then maybe you're the one that has the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you want to call and see him because maybe he
you got a bad delivery
checks.
Yeah, delivery.
Or he doesn't pay. His account is late.
Well, also maybe you have a defective product that you don't know about.
Well, yeah, but he'll call you about that.
Well, but
if you got a defective problem, or if you have a problem with your quality that you know about, you may want to go out as part of an information gathering service. Have you experienced this or that? But if he's got a problem with the defective quality, he'll call you. If you got a problem with his payment or stuff, you probably need to call him and visit him. But there's nothing like the owner showing up and saying, hey, I got a problem, and if we can't get this straightened out, maybe we need to have a new basis for doing business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the
And
next
then
slide
some
is...
of them are just routine orders that, you just want to go visit people and find out and check out the competition and check out how things are going. And that you usually have some kind of criteria, you evaluate them on who the most important customers are. Maybe it's ones that that aren't customers at all, but someone you'd like to have as a customer. So those are situations when the owner can do it, and there's really nobody better than the owner to do it in that cases.
That's right. So one of the next flag we got is information gathering and sharing.
Well, that's something that most people don't do enough of.
Exactly.
We got into a discussion about who's thinking and what they're thinking about versus what the process is supposed to delegate what they're supposed to think about. And no employee is going to think along the same lines that you do. So if you really want the kind of information and you know what kind of information you want, there's nobody better than doing it yourself.
Well, we talked about that. As an example was we have an estimator that goes to the counter and gets the order and on the small orders, and if he's not sharp estimator to realize what the pricing is, they can leave a lot of money on the table. And I think educating your estimator as an example, or your salesman estimating, educating your salesman is a process that needs to be done often. Don't you say that? Would put it that way?
Yeah, I think you hit on the magic word, though. The magic word is the process. What's process and what's not. And in the first instance, though, the salesman doesn't have the same kind of considerations that you do. He's not thinking in a long-range term. He's more than likely just thinking of the here and now. I got this guy, he's interrupting my radio show or my TV show or the article I was reading. So let me just get him out of the way, and we'll move along from there. You, on the other hand, probably want to pursue and say, well, what kind of business are you in? How much business do you do? How long have you been in business? Where do you want to go? Who do you sell against?
Exactly.
There's all kinds of questions, and your salesman just doesn't think of those things like you do.
Right. So the information gathering, sharing has to be a procedure that gives it back not just to the salesman, but it feeds it back down even to maybe to production.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that part of the information gathering you might want to do is how your salesman treats him.
That's a number one thing, We had.
Yeah, you better believe it.
I just love that one client we have that put a tracker on his trucks, and we could find out how long the guy was spending at the donut shop versus how much he was spending with the customer. I think if we put a GPS tracker on our salesman, I think we'd be disappointed on how much time he spends at the customer.
Yeah, more of it spends at home, probably.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, yeah. Or visiting his extra girlfriend or something.
You have to be careful about the trackers, though. You're liable to get sued for invasion of privacy.
I don't know, but it's a very, how do I want to say it? It's a very telling thing on what our employees really are doing with their spare time when they're not at their desk. Yeah. Or even.
Well, I remember doing it, and it was pretty interesting because you can just watch the whole path right on your computer screen where they're going.
Yeah. Well, let's go back just to information gathering, which is a routine sales call.
Yeah, I think, a lot of those are just to see how happy he is. What would you like to see us do? How do we match up against our competitors? Invariably, pricing comes in. So, you get an idea of, well, what's your competitor doing? And don't be afraid to ask him for copies of an invoices. Let me see that a minute.
From your competitor.
Stock is cheap.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's one on there that you guys really, we talked about it many times before on a different things when we talked about sales, but pre-schedule a visit based on the viewer availability. So consider the importance of the customer. I think that's be considerate of your customer when you ask for sales calls.
Yeah, one of the other things that I don't think the people spend enough time looking at is what territories, where would they like to develop a customer? If you're trying to build a route or build a territory to make it more efficient, then you kind of maybe want to look at some of the lists and make some cold calls and things, trying to go fishing from that standpoint.
And that's a really important thing too. That that you may have a product that certain customers buy, but if you walked around or drove around the industrial park, you might find other customers that could use part of your products too.
Well, the other part too is there's nothing like walking around his physical plant to find out whose products he's really using.
Yeah, that's another good idea. Exactly. Yeah. It says, the last one says, gather intelligence about your competitor. I think that's really, really a good one.
It is. You got to, it's one thing to keep your ears open, but it's another thing to keep your eyes open and put them in partnership with your ears.
Yeah, that's right. Put them in partnership with your ears. I like that one.
And a customer will only tell you what he wants you to hear on the phone. Let me tell you. So you got to put those eyes at work sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that the last subject is to document everything. That's a big subject, Dick.
Which one?
Document everything.
Yeah.
I think that's a big subject because it entails not just how much the customer bought from you or what products he bought from you. It entails when he buys it from you and all the other things that are and what his product is that he's selling maybe.
Well, one of the things that always comes up that you don't really realize and you can't get from talking to him, if you're looking at his place and maybe he doesn't have any storage facilities and you're bitching because he always calls you at the last minute and expects you to be there right away. Well, once you understand what the nature of his problem is, then maybe you can understand a little better and maybe work things out a little differently.
And there's another thing when you're documenting that, and like I say, who they're selling to. I'm going to give you an example of what I do. I do taxes for my clients that walk through the door and come back every year. Anyway, one of my clients, she came out of college and she somehow got hooked up with other countries and said, and especially specific China, and she found somebody in China that the Chinese people wanted to send their kids to college for 6 months or 3 months just for the exposure. So she lined up transportation and she lined up a place for them to live and a school for them to go to. Well, she gets money from the school when they go to when the Chinese people show up to these schools for 3 or 4 months for education, and she gets money from the transportation, and she gets money from them because she says, here's your package. So anyway, now what she needs is people that can put up these kids in a safe place. So what she finds is families that have a spare room, and so the families will get money for putting these kids up and feeding them and transporting them between their home and their college, and they're in a very safe mode. They're not in a hotel room where somebody can sock them over the head and steal from them. So what I found was I found 3 different tax clients that are doing this, and I said, well, you need to talk to my client that's sending these people over from China. So I've been an instrument in helping these people both sides of the fence of getting more business, and maybe you can do the same thing for your customer. You say, oh yeah, you're buying this Scotch tape from this company, but I have a customer that I sell to that sells Scotch tape at this price. So I think not just selling your product, but being an instrument for helping them save money makes you more valuable to them also. So I think that, Dick, that when we talk about documenting everything, just don't document how much they bought from you or when they buy it from you. Document what they're doing, what they're selling is an important thing to find out. So, and there's several of these related inexpensive computer programs that Dick's going to talk about that that you should be looking at as far as not just writing it down on a piece of paper, but using easy to use computer programs. Are you there, Dick?
I'm here.
Okay, so you're going to tell them about computer programs that could help them document this stuff.
You know, that's a whole story in itself. And if you take a brand new business starting up, you got one kind of a computer program that you need, and the first thing they will go out and is they'll buy a QuickBooks or something because they know that you're going to ask for records. But when you really get into it, you find, well, that's not really all that they need. And so then maybe they'll go out and they'll get, you know, something like a calendar program. And there's one that I've used since, you know, the 80s or 90s, whenever it was, called Goldmine. And it's old technology now, but by golly, it's still good and it still uses, and it's based on, you know, common foundations and stuff, so it's pretty compatible with other programs. And those are things that don't get viewed at early on, and the longer you start using them, the harder it is to change from them, but also the least that they do. So it's something to stay on top of all the time.
Yeah, and the follow-up on something is you need to have something that pushes you to follow up. I mean, even in my business, sometimes I get a customer that I put on the bottom of the stack by mistake, and I don't get to him to 2 or 3 weeks, and he's ready to know his number on how much he owes for taxes. Or I got a customer that I didn't get his payroll taxes done as soon as I should have, so he can plan for it. There needs to be a calendar. I need a calendar that says, you know, this is the time to get the sales tax numbers to the customer, not the 25th of the month, but, you know, at least around the 10th or the 15th of the month, get the sales tax, so he has time to plan for the cash that he has to pay out for sales tax, as an example. So,
well, if you remember, we had a client that we started working with probably almost 20 years ago, and the reason that I ever got brought in is you said, hey, you need to help me put an accounting system in. And we started talking about, well, what's an accounting system? And we actually developed a program for him over the course of that 20 years, and we used Microsoft Access. And God, when we went in, he had like 13 of these big 6-inch thick binders where he'd done a really good job, but it was so big that it was not really useful on a day-to-day purpose. And today, they're still using the same program, believe it or not, that was developed, and it is still functional. And that program has made the difference in the way he's viewed by all his customers. I mean, it really has done a job. But we could not start with something out of the box. We really developed it over the years. And part of the reason for that is when you first put something in, the customer doesn't know what he needs, and he especially doesn't know what he can do with it. And it's over time that you discover those things and put them together.
I agree.
That was really a success program.
Yeah, that was a success program. Yeah. Okay.
And he couldn't buy that thing out of the box.
No, he couldn't buy that thing out of the box.
We could not take the program that we developed to him and put it in another business and have it be as functional as it is for him.
Exactly. Exactly what happened. Yeah, exactly.
And that's another reason for going to a professional like yourself, is you've got 20 years of experience that people can work on. And, God, you know, that's what you're there for, to try and help them. They ought to appreciate it, and that's really a valuable asset to take advantage of.
And I think that's what we haven't been emphasizing as we talk to the people on our radio show here, that we're here to give you the experience that you haven't had because you haven't been around as long as we have. And I say that, yeah, not around as long as you have. Yeah, we're old and decrepit, blah, blah, blah. But what we're really saying is, we had this problem and we solved it this way, and we had that problem and we solved it this way. I mean, from my standpoint of working 7 years for the CPA firm, yeah, I got involved with audits. And so when I was at the big companies, they would say, hey, Bruner, you've worked with CPAs. Go talk to these guys in their language. Yeah, they asked for something. I knew why they were asking for it. They needed a sample of cost in order to be able to document what the costs were on this product or this sale or this company was. Yeah, they needed to do accounts receivable confirmations and follow-up. I mean, that's because I had the experience of doing it on their side of the fence. So when they came to the other company, I was able to do that for them. And it wasn't just that one; it was the costing system that I installed or I understood, and so those costing systems I use now because or parts of them I use because now I got a client that got too much purchasing going on and no control of what the costs are. Well, guess what? I'm able to throw that into Access and say, no, here's what you bought it for, and here's what you sold it for. Otherwise,
well, the truth of the matter is that all businesses are really the same. You buy something or you make something, you sell it, and you collect the money. The differences between all the businesses is the little things that happen in the middle between the beginning and the end. And that's where experience come in. You've seen enough places in the middle to know what works and what doesn't.
And you've done the same thing, Dick, in your career too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's what we want to pass on to our listeners is, here's if you think about it, like for instance, we just talked about the sales today. You really need to go back and look at your customers and mine your customers, not just mine the ones that, not just mine the old customers or the new customers that you don't know about or you haven't gone back to. You need to mine your own customers and see what they're doing and what they're where they're growing and where they're not growing. I mean, that's one of the things I find so interesting when I go from client to client is, what are you doing? My customers that are employment agencies, what their inventory is? Their inventory is recruiting people so they can sell that. That's their product. What have they got in their arsenal of applicants that they can use to entice the customer to take one of their applicants? I mean, that's an inventory system in itself too. So, and you mine that.
I can remember. I had a headhunter used to call me all the time to change jobs. And as a matter of fact, I probably got paired up with you because a headhunter sicked me onto you one way or another.
Yeah.
Because he found that I was good at what I did, and so he felt comfortable in recommending me because I hadn't let him down. I knew what I was doing. And it enhanced his position too. And yes, I was inventory for him.
Yeah, you were inventory for him, exactly. Yeah, and as I job hopped around, I was inventory for those headhunters too. You're exactly right. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.